So I'm here on behalf of Astromatrix. My name is Marcelle, and I'm here today to talk to you about Pluto that's gone retrograde on the 26th and the 27th. So it's just passed. It also subsequently turned retrograde just after full moon. Before I dive into that, I just want to mention two things. First of all, if you do like our content, please do like and subscribe to our channel. And then secondly, it's really, really helpful to get your chart out. You can look at this through the Astromatrix app, either beforehand or printed out, just to understand where these dynamics are playing out for you, which house your natal Pluto lies in, as well as where the transiting Pluto lies, because this is what's been impacted by the retrograde. All right, so Pluto retrograde, first of all, it gives context to understand what Pluto is about. So Pluto has to do with the underworld. It's connected to the subconscious. It's that area in our life where we very comfortably push things out the way that we don't want to deal with, those very uncomfortable things, and they get stuck and stored in the subconscious. And often this the wounding around that happens especially when we're children. And so when these big Pluto transits happen, it activates and triggers this wounding depending on the themes that are playing out, which has to do with the house that not only your natal Pluto lies in, but that the transiting Pluto is moving through. So wherever Pluto is in your chart, whichever house it's in, determines the themes that you're there to work with around power or lack thereof, empowerment versus disempowerment. It also has to do with where you experience betrayal, where you experienced abandonment, where you experienced disempowerment, shock, jealousy, extreme circumstances that disrupted your connection to your core. So as Pluto moves through the chart, its aim is to reinforce, to purge, and to invigorate that Pluto in that chart. Its aim is to connect us back to our power wherever that disempowerment happened. So the natal chart holds the story as to where we're going through the conditioning, or where we have been conditioned and are going through the deconditioning process, connecting to our power. And then the transiting Pluto, which is currently in Capricorn, has to do with, it gives extra information as to what it is that you're exploring around your natal Pluto. So it gives more detail, more depth, more information. So for instance, if you have a natal fourth house Pluto, it means you experienced intense power struggles and disruptions within the home environment, possibly to do with how it is that you were mothered, depending on what sign Pluto is in. For instance, in Scorpio, there could have been a lot of secrecy. And then with, the transiting Pluto, if, for instance, it is moving through the 8th house, then it has to do with deep subconscious themes, because Pluto rules the 8th house around the subconscious. So it's really, really digging up themes around the subconscious. Where, for instance, Pluto in the 3rd house has to do with our relationship with our siblings. It has to do with our relationship to our communication, to our minds, how it is that we process information. And so, of course, any distortions or disruptions that we experienced around those early years of our lives often get buried into the vault of the subconscious. And when these big Pluto transits happen, this is when they get pushed up. So Pluto is, as I mentioned, it has to do with the purging. It's it's opening up that vault and going inside to examine what is there. So this is what the retrograde represents. When Pluto is moving forward, it's just, in its Pluto manner, shaking things up. But as it moves backwards, as it's going retrograde, it's wanting to review and dig in a little bit deeper into that arena in order for you to really take stock of what is playing out. And so what's really important about this Pluto retrograde is that it went stationed retrograde the day after the full moon, which was in Scorpio. The full moon in Scorpio is ruled by is ruled by Scorpio. So there's a very strong correlation. And what has been set up by this full moon, what was triggered during this full moon, and possibly from which you experienced some kind of breakthrough, this is the theme of what you will be working with over the next 6 months as Pluto goes retrograde till October the 4th, 5th, 6th, around there, depending on where you are in the world. So let's unpack this a little bit more, the full moon, because the full moon was a really strong indicator of what was playing up. It was set in Scorpio, and Scorpio is very much about an inner tension, which in opposition to the sun in Taurus had to do with stability and structure. And of course with Uranus, the sun, and Venus moving through Taurus, with especially with Uranus there, it was asking us to examine some area of our life that we're needing to break free from, that we're needing to experience a new possibility. So the thing with Pluto is that it's the idea that we experience a certain mind view. Our ego develops a mind view in response to its environment, especially as a child. This is how the ego develops. And so it has a perception of its reality through that mind view. So when something comes along that shakes that up or is contrary to its perceived worldview or mind view, which is very much established to establish security and safety, then that feels incredibly disruptive, and the ego has to go through a process of meeting it, because the force of Pluto coming at you is so strong, especially because this full moon was ruled by Scorpio, which was in opposition to Taurus, connecting to security. So Uranus disrupting all those planets, in connecting to the sun and to Venus, as well as Uranus there in Taurus, it's really shaking up outdated connections to security that we have. So this just after the full moon, because around the time of the full moon, Uranus was also in an inconjunct to the south node representing the past, outdated ways of doing things, where it is that we're needing to evolve away from. There was an inconjunct there, so it was a very discomforting, uncomfortable tension that was playing out, which may even have created some kind of a blind spot. We couldn't see things clearly, what was going on. And so over the process of this full moon, it led to a boiling point where some kind of eruption broke out, possibly almost like the squeezing of a pimple, and then there was some kind of release, because there was clarity around that part of the subconscious that was released. And so the process now is possibly there's more purging that needs to happen around that area for you, and possibly there's, or possibly for some, there's an integration that is needing to happen around that. So a deeper understanding of what's playing out. And it's very much connected to our wounding, but also to the theme of power, empowerment, and empowerment, power very much has to do with individuation. So I share this because I feel that the Pluto retrograde, the process is allowing us to really examine not only what's going on within ourselves from a disempowered standpoint, but also what's playing out collectively on the planet. So it is shaking up a lot of fear, because when that world view or that mind view, that egoic bubble of how things should look, starts to get shattered, and that's Pluto's function. It wants to push our boundaries so that we can experience a more expansive aspect of who we are, of how it is that we perceive our reality. when that pressure is applied by Pluto, and we come up against the edge of what our protection, our security, Taurus, is about, it brings up an immense amount of fear. And so in a way, that's what's happening on the planet right now with Pluto in Capricorn, and Capricorn has to do with power and or the lack thereof. This Pluto in Capricorn is going to be playing up these themes around power and the distortions of power, very much connected to the old constructs of power, patriarchal power, that's no longer really working on this planet. So it's almost like we're breaking out of some kind of shell, breaking out of some kind of cocoon over the next 4 years, so it's until 2024, and really examining this old construct and all the fears around that as we birth into the new construct of what power means. And of course, we've got Saturn in Aquarius at the moment, which is needing to learn structure and responsibility around what a new level of freedom means before that Pluto finally births into Aquarius. So it is scary, and we are so connected to the collective. We are the collective. We are all it. We're all in this bubble together, and so our fears are shared. And if we really want to create change on the planet, if we genuinely want this change to happen, it really needs to start with ourselves. And so the best way to start working with this pressure, these fears, is to allow yourself, first of all, to feel it, but also to, because what's happening is it's coming from the subconscious. It's coming from that cesspit of the subconscious. And if there's no understanding, awareness of what's going on, we just react blindly to things. And remember, once again, it's useful to understand what the area of your chart, which house it is that it's playing out in order to understand what the themes are. So once we're aware, okay, it's playing out in the 4th house, it has to do with home, it has to do with the struggles that I experienced home, it has to do with perhaps how I relate with people sharing that home space with me. And then we get to understand, okay, these dynamics that are playing out in this way, these tensions that I'm experiencing possibly with other people, there's something there that I'm needing to look at. So it's really bringing your curiosity and presence to what's playing out, and really step by step allowing yourself to step into the fear. If it feels very, very uncomfortable, it means that there's work that's happening. And ultimately, as the story gets released, and often what happens with Pluto is there's a big outburst. For some, it can just be a moment of clarity, but it's almost like, this protection that we've been holding on to and holding down this stuff within the sex birth, within the subconscious. When the pressure gets too much of holding it down, it erupts and it blows up, and we cannot hold that back. And so once that happens, what is then essential is to really put pride aside, and there needs to be a level of accountability. And this is generally the only way that there can be real transformation and then integration on one's part. And if we can all start doing this with our own personal journeys, it really starts impacting on a greater scale, and starts impacting us as a collective, which is inevitable and going to play out regardless, because that is what the energy of Pluto in Capricorn is around and about. That's what it's advocating. So, Pluto will be stationing direct. It's the 5th or the 6th, depending on where you are in the world, of October. And so there are a few more aspects that will be happening, which over the period of these months through Astromatrix we will be creating more videos about, especially if they're very relevant. A good one to look out for is Mars coming into an opposition to Pluto over the next few days, over the next week. And it's you know, the Mars is in Cancer, and it comes into this opposition to Pluto, and so there's this impetus to take action in whatever area of your chart that Mars is, you know, whatever that area that Mars lies, and it very much ties into the theme of what played out for you around the full moon. And so while this may feel incredibly uncomfortable, this is where you can find growth and change, and it's a good sign to keep going forward, regardless of how uncomfortable it is. So this really is about challenging courage and such a strong desire to really become accountable, because we cannot evade the subconscious themes. They will perpetuate, and as we get older, they escalate more and more out of control until eventually those eruptions happen. And that's why those eruptions happen, because we've been avoiding the lessons of those themes. So there we go. I hope that shed some light on this Pluto that's playing out. And if you have any stories or information that you wish to share in the comments below, we always do appreciate hearing what's playing out for you. I suspect everyone has had an intense full moon that has just passed, and you know, especially those conjunctions of the Sun and Venus to Uranus. And of course, all of this in a square to Saturn in Aquarius. So it's a lot of tension that's happening, and a lot of fear that's on the planet right now, and a lot of big breakthroughs that are happening for some people. And the most important thing is to just keep focusing on yourself and staying centered with the work that you're needing to do, and not get too sucked into the chaos, unless it feels like an obvious pull to get involved with as part of your karmic path. So thank you so much for your time, and please again do like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell. We also do offer astrology readings, so if there is a desire to explore what these themes may mean for you with Pluto going retrograde, as it is such a potent period in one's life to really understand the deeper inner psychological themes that are needing purging and integration, then please do reach out and book an astrology reading to get some more information on that. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.